Me and my buddy, we go play tennis. Sometimes we play tennis down in Strathcona, down the flats. He's got a buddy he always talks about is Millard. And he says, well, Millard's moved to Medicine Hat. Let's just go and visit Millard.
We just moved here in April of last year. We retired, Christine and I. A friend of mine, a good friend of mine, brought this fellow over, and his name's Dave Reinheller. He's actually drinking whiskey and smoking a joint. Here comes Dave, eh? I don't know why. We never talked about God all those Thursdays. But every time before Dave left, he'd shake my hand and thank me.
Went there 2 or 3 times, 4 times, chatted with him, just hung out. And come up to me, he says,
I want to go to church with you. He said, you want to what? I said, I want to go to church.
He says, okay, sure, yeah, no problem. What do you want me to help? I'll just pick you up. And he says, yeah, sure, let's do that.
When he left, Christina said, did you just ask him to take you to church? I said, yeah. She says, what'd you do that for? I said, I don't know. Then Dave calls on Saturday. I wouldn't answer the phone. But he kept calling. She says, you better answer the phone. He's here every Thursday. So I said, okay.
We started bringing Millard to church in probably September. And Dave started bringing him. I was always busy doing King's Kids. Our routine was he'd go pick up this Millard guy, and I would go to church and do King's Kids. And then I'd meet them in the pew, and I met Millard and Christina.
Well, in September, I got rushed to the hospital, and my blood pressure was 132 over 121. And they determined my kidneys were shutting down. I was at 14%. My heart was failing. My lungs were filling with fluid. It just got worse. They were draining 2 liters of fluid off my lungs every 2 weeks. It got to a point where they had me on a list to go to a place where I would die. I'd be cared for until I died, St. Joseph's.
He was in the hospital, and it didn't look good. He had 4 really major issues, one of them being COPD. He was hardly able to breathe, but they sent him home.
I don't usually go down there to see him, but I just one day decided to pop in and see him. He's sitting on the couch and he can barely breathe. He says, I can barely walk across the room. He says, I'm not doing good. He says, I'm not doing good. I says, well, we got to get you some oxygen. Got this lady to come over and the next morning, actually, and give him some oxygen and brought some life back into him. He could actually move around a little bit and things were a lot better. So we started going to church. He looked forward to coming to church every Sunday because it was a spiritual uplift for him. That's his one thing, seemed like during the week that would just give him that spiritual fulfillment that he needed.
I felt bad because I couldn't stand, and I'm carrying an oxygen machine. After church, after service, Sheila said she'd really love if Christine and I came to the children's concert. And I didn't want to come, but I said, okay.
I knew they were coming, and so with King's Kids, when we have a concert and before, we come early, we do sound checks, and then we have time and to just pause and pray for people that we've invited. I gave a special prayer request that night along with the kids. They all were praying for grandpas and grandmas and friends and neighbors and schoolmates and teachers. And so I said, well, I have a prayer request, and his name is Millard, and he's been very, very sick. And he could die. He's that sick. And so can we just pray that he makes it to the concert tonight and that he would be touched by our musical. They prayed their little hearts out, and I was kind of surprised. It was just so sincere. It seemed like the whole front row of little grade 1, 2s and even older kids prayed for him.
Everything was fine. It was a nice little concert, and I went home, and I was taking off my portable oxygen to hook up to the home oxygen, and I had to go to the washroom. So I went to the washroom, and I wasn't able to sleep in bed because of the fluid on my lungs, so I slept in a chair. So I sat in my chair, and Christina, she went to bed, and I said, I'm going to watch a movie. And I watched the movie, and then I felt tired, so I went to bed. I hadn't been to bed in months. And I woke up in the morning, my little dog, Yorkie, woke me up in the bed. He had to go out, and I picked him up, and I took him outside. And I'm getting emotional, but I came in, and Christina said, where's your oxygen? So, yeah. At the Christmas concert, Sheila asked the children to pray for me. And a 6-year-old girl stood up and said, God, don't let him die.
And it was over Christmas, so I probably brought him to church 2 weeks later, and comes jumping out of the house. I says, well, where's your oxygen? He says, I don't need the oxygen anymore. And he had a little jump in his step, and I'm going, wow. Okay, what's going on here? On the way home, he says, yeah, I've been feeling better since we went to King's Kids. I go, oh, okay, well, whatever. And later that night, I was talking with Sheila, and Sheila started thinking about it.
And I thought, oh, we prayed for Millard before the concert. So I texted him up and I said, Millard, you know what? We prayed really hard for you before the concert. And, I think God might have touched you if you really feel that you had a healing at the concert. So he got so excited, and he told us he went outside with his phone and was showing his neighbors, these kids prayed for me and now I'm healed. And he was going door to door to showing his neighbors.
I didn't have a doctor. The doctors in the hospital seen me, but I didn't have a doctor. And then I would go back to the hospital for all these tests, and all the specialists say, you got to get a doctor because you're having these tests and they're just going in a file and no one's even looking at it. 3 days later, I had an appointment with my doctor. I walked in and she got mad as soon as she seen I didn't have my oxygen tank. I said, where's your tank? I said, I don't need it. She's like, who told you you don't need it? I said, nobody. She said, you can't stop your oxygen. She said, who's your respiratory therapist? I said, I don't have one. She said, well, where did you get the oxygen? I said, I don't know. My friend Dave called somebody. And they come over with an oxygen tank. And I've been ever since. And they sent me to a specialist. They tested me for 2 hours, ultrasounds and x-rays and breathing tests. And now they were trying to figure out what they did. Well, you didn't do anything. But now I get all the doctors in the world.
What's really cool to me is that we have affirmation from doctors that he indeed is healed. His lungs are perfectly fine. He has no more COPD. Even delivered from drinking. Like he said, I thought on Christmas Eve I'd pour myself a whiskey because he drank it all the time. And he went to drink and he just said he couldn't do it and he poured the whole thing down the sink.
Well, let's face it, our body's a holy temple. But I destroyed mine. Drinking and smoking, drugging and fighting. And my desire to drink has left. God's put a new roof on it. It's still not perfect. So I'm humbled by that. So now the Spirit lives in there again. I'm not ashamed anymore to witness. I always was. I'm trying to take care of the temple first and foremost, because if I don't, I'm no good to anybody.
He's been given a second chance. He walks downtown every day, and he couldn't even walk across his living room before. And he witnesses to all his neighbors. He goes to each one and just witnesses to them, wants Bibles, and he's just on fire.
He's a good man, and he knows where he's going now, and he's pretty happy about it. He's got struggles, and he knows Satan's out to get him, because there's lots of battles happening in his life, different things. I think the Holy Spirit has just renewed something in his mind and his body and his thinking.
When I went on oxygen, my blood oxygen level was 41%. When they tested me, it was 98%. My lungs stopped filling up. I lost 20 pounds of fluid and my body was retaining. And my COPD is better today than the day they diagnosed it. It's like something happened. The doctors say it was a medical mystery.